Hello, and welcome back to another season of What It Takes to Be a Rock Star. I am so excited because this week I have the pleasure of chatting with Eugene Robinson. For those of you who don't know who Eugene is, he's an absolute legend who has been in heavy, experimental, avant garde, and hardcore bands since the 80s. And he was the vocalist for the bands Whipping Boy, OXBOW, and currently BUÑUEL. And he shares stages with Minor Threat, the Melvins, A Perfect Circle, and Jesus Lizard, to name a few. There's tons more. And aside from that, he's also an author, he's a father, he has a black belt in jujitsu, and way more. He's just a very interesting human all around who's done a lot of things in his life. And we actually connected because he wrote an article. Like I said, he's an author, and he wrote an article called "When Will Bands Stop Telling Lies About the Economics of Being in a Band?" Okay, how about today? And he wrote this powerful article, and my boyfriend Ryan actually saw it, and he sent it to me, and he said, "You should talk to this guy. You should talk to Eugene." And he sent Eugene an email, he sent me an email, and it ended up working out, and we connected for this chat, and it was great. It was so cool to hear the stories. And aside from the stories that he has and the wealth of information and advice, he is a really awesome example of how to stay true to your artistic self no matter what the outcomes are in this world. So, without further ado, enjoy. For anyone who's never heard of you before, if anyone out there hasn't, can you do like a brief rundown of your musical life? Because I know you started, your first tour was in 1982. Is that right?
Let's see. The first band I was in was actually 1980. It was a band called Al and the X's, and I played saxophone. And we went at it in a really different way. We decided to, man, booking agents and that clubs, that's all bourgeois. We're gonna take our music to the people, and we would just go into places and play, which
Mm-hmm.
is, which is kind of an amusing idea. But you get thrown out of a lot of places when you do that, especially when you don't know how to play saxophone
Yeah.
like I did not at the time. It took me about 3 months when I could actually make it sound like something. That was probably after about the sixth show. But then it stuck in my head. I went back that summer. So now we're talking the summer of 81. And I did two things inspired by what I later discovered was a Richard Kern magazine called The Valium Addict. I decided to publish a magazine, and then I came back to California after working for the New York City Department of Parks for that summer. Fired up with I had done a bunch of stuff for the magazine, and I was also going to start a band. So then that's that fall of '81. Steve Ballinger and I started Whipping Boy, and so yeah, '82 is when we did our first tour. And I think that winter, I still have it. This guy Kevin McLean had an 8-track studio in his dorm room, and we recorded our first demo there, during which the bass player we had at the time had a nervous breakdown maybe three-quarters of the way into the session and fled. And as fortune would have it, it was a son of the guy who pulled off the Stanford prison experiment. How's that for a fun fact? Philip Zimbardo's kid, Adam Zimbardo. Adam Zimbardo is a great guy, but you can't leave a recording session, you know. So, but we did
Yeah,
get a
come
dem
on.
we did get a demo out of that, and then we had these kind of, I mean, much like Al and the X's, we had this. We're fired by this idea of like, well, why can't we do that? Why can't we? And we happened to go to a Circle Jerk show, all of us, and I was like, God damn, we should be on this show. I said, we're all here. Let's ask. So in full Little Rascals fashion, we went up to the guys and said, hey, would you mind? Keith Morris went up to Keith Morris and said, hey, would you mind if we played, my whole band is here, can we play 3 songs before you guys play? And I always forget the visual impact that you have when you got a guitar player who's 6'6", 270 pounds. They like looked at him and they're like, yeah, sure, because I guess they figured it was easier just to say yes, right? Except they did say you can't use our equipment. But the band that played before them were the Effigies, and so they said, "Yeah, sure, okay, yeah, you could use our equipment." And they made the mistake and announced us next up from Los Angeles, the Circle Jerks. and we come out, and everybody flipped out because they thought they were being ripped off. They threw bottles
Oh,
at us and cans, and we're like, ah, ha, ha, we got you. And after that, Klaus came up to me, Klaus Fluoride, who later ended up producing some stuff. He came up to me. Darren Peligro came up to me and talked to us. And then I think even Tim Yohannan, like, who are you guys? And do you want to be on this compilation, this Not So Quiet on the Western Front compilation? And that was the first record thing that we ever did, us and I think 42 other bands. And so that had to be 82. And then yeah, we went on tour that summer. So with Minor Threat, incidentally. So
it's funny. I read some stuff about that tour, and you guys ended up being on. You toured in a truck, right?
yeah.
Yeah, with the back
Oh,
in the
that
tour.
was so. I tried to. I was having a really hard time communicating when I wrote that how we had to sit because I sit with our knees up. So I'm sure people thought that you had two people sitting like this, which might have been comfortable, but in actual fact, we were two people sitting like like this.
No.
So there was, and the way the distribution felt for some reason, the rhythm section and the rhythms they worked as a unit. So when they drove, I'd be in the back with the 6'6", 270 pound guy, and I'm a big guy too, so it was pretty unpleasant. But if you're 19, what do you give a shit? You don't care. So
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. What's funny? My first tour was also in a truck like
what
that.
kind of truck?
I don't know, but it did have it had 5 seats. But
Uh-huh.
I'm tiny. I'm five
Uh,
two, so like I
uh-huh.
was the one in the middle of the back, and there was 5 of us in the truck,
Fuck.
and then the
Could you
equipment
could
in
you
the
could,
back.
could you communicate with people in the front? Is
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
okay? Yeah, that
You
I mean,
couldn't, right?
no, we were thinking like doing some Little Rascals thing, like a can and a string, just so you could like talk to. Because if you, and I think actually I had to go. This is where I developed my road habits. I had to urinate at one point, but I really didn't want to stop, and
Yeah.
I couldn't have gotten them to stop anyway. So I remember opened the little doggy door that was in the shell, kneeling precariously out the back while Steve held my shirt so I could piss out of the back of the truck. So yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why
That's
that's why I get enraged when I was doing a project. It was called Low House with this French guy and his new girlfriend, and we had booked a tour, and the tour had started to. There was a lot of misrepresentation going on. Like he's like, "Oh, the record will be out. It'll be a perfect time to tour." So he says, "Hey, by the way, the record's not going to be out." I go, "What happened? What label did you have it on again?" He goes, "Well, I actually didn't have it on any label." I go, "Okay." He's like, and it's not coming out, so we're just gonna, I don't know, we could sell download codes or something. I go, who's gonna go to a merch table and buy a download code? He goes, well, I've toured with the guy before, in this band L'Enfance Rouge. And I said, well, he said, anything you could do that would improve the tour, what would be? I go, you need a van, you need like a real van. So I said, okay, well, the record's not out, whatever. I love the songs. It'll be fun to road test them. I said, hey, what are we going to be traveling in? And this is right before COVID. He goes, well, I got this minivan. I go, oh, bro, I'm 230 pounds here. I'm 6 foot tall. I can't sit in a minivan for long drives. I can't do that. Because it'll be fine. It'll be fine. And I go, okay. And he goes, oh, by the way, that per diem that I had promised you. Yeah, because I was just the guest vocalist, right? I have like 100 euros a day. Yeah, so I can't pay you that either. I just and I was like, hey man, you know what? You know what? This is not a good time. This is not the and so his girlfriend starts to lecture me these angry emails through which is about you don't understand at all the true spirit of rock and roll. And I like just about lost my mind. I've been doing this since before you were fucking born and been all kinds of disgusting circumstances, sleeping in houses that were condemned. I mean, just I'm not complaining. I'm just noting. And so to get a speech from somebody who's like, about the true spirit of rock and roll, I could have fucking murdered them both. So time passes, and Buñuel is, my band now. We're playing this big festival in Porto, Portugal, with it's us and what is that band that did on Death Wish? God, Sun Breather. I can't remember. They're a very, very, very big band. And who walks up with this guy and his girlfriend? And they were playing on like the small stage, and they were playing in a large stage. So they got in our backstage area, and they tried to be friendly. And you know anything about me? I'm a long-term fucking grudge holder, and I just wouldn't have it. I just would. Well, we thought maybe you could go out and get drinks after. I go, I don't drink. Well, maybe we could get tea here. I said, I hate tea. Just sat there bathing in the uncomfortable silence. I will never get over that. Don't lecture me about the true spirit of fucking rock and roll. That was disgusting to me, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's something like that where riding in that van, sleeping on dirty floors and stuff. That is absolutely. I had a French promoter who said, my mother is going to cook she's going to cook the food for the show. And I was like, great, real French food, you know? And and what showed up was like really fucking badly burnt quiche. Okay,
Aw.
okay, that's fine. So we get to the venue, we get to where we're sleeping that night, and I go, what are all these red lights in these vans here? Are these truck drivers? They go, no, no, these are this is the prostitution alley. Like, so these are the pimps are there with the prostitutes. I go, oh, so then we get to the place we're staying. I go, do you have a key? So we can, oh, there's no key.
Mm.
Okay, there's no key. So we get inside and I go, okay, where are the rooms? And these are, the dirty mattresses on the floor. And I'm like, game, what? I'm not complaining. I'll go for the dirty mattress on the floor. That's fine. I go, do you have sheets and stuff? And they kind of tear down some dusty curtains, and they go, well, you guys can use those. And I'm like, okay, okay, fuck it, we'll use those. And then, but I'm getting to like that last straw kind of place, And then finally, I was like, well, what I like to do after every show, and this is after a show, is take a shower. So, because I'm dirty, and I'm kind of anal that way. I don't want to be dirty. So, can you show me where the? Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, I'll take you to the shower. Guy takes me to the shower, and I go, is there a light in the shower? No, no, the light's burned out. But I go, what are those wires? He goes, well, those wires there, you got to watch out when you take a shower because those wires are hot. I'm
What?
like, I'm like, that's it, man. We're gonna take the buyout. So if you could give us the money for the hotel, we're gonna go to the hotel. So he goes, well, I go, where are you staying? He goes, well, I'm staying at home, but I said, no, no, we're not staying here. So we take the money and we stay at a Formula One, which is a terrible hotel. It's worse than like Motel 6. And I love Motel 6, but it's just like beds are like plastic tubes and the shower is a vertical plastic tube. I'm not complaining. I was glad to sleep there that night. And later, as I mind my own business, I'm online reading, and I can read a little bit of French. And I read, he's describing the evening, and he describes us as luxury lovers.
Oh my gosh, come on.
And I wrote this guy, and my friend Jamie Stewart from Juju had the same experience with this guy, this Sonic Protest guy, I think was the guy. And I wrote the guy did not online, not in general. But I just wrote him directly and said, hey, you know what? Because I'm a luxury lover and have so much available cash, I'm going to buy a ticket to come to Lyon and I'm going to stab you in the throat with a fucking butter knife. You piece of shit, luxury lover. Sincerely, Eugene.
Oh my god, did he
And
answer?
he got nervous and he contacted the I whoever the ISP and said this guy's threatening my life and they threatened me. So then I called him because what are you going to do? Call fucking Verizon? And I said, when I see you again, and he's like, can't we be reasonable people about this? I go, all I'm asking you to do is spend one night where you wanted us to spend a night. That's it. That's
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that died out without a whimper. But you got he drove 2 miles from home with his burnt quiche and went back to that home later. He didn't have to sleep in junky prostitute alley with no door and an electrifying shower. And
Yeah.
somehow in his mind it made sense to treat a band the way he wouldn't have treated himself. So, Deaf Heaven was the name of the band. Sorry,
Okay. All right.
that we played with in Porto. So,
I knew it would come to you.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I was actually thinking about that last night because myself and tons of musicians that I know have toured and slept in these like awful conditions
Hmm.
over and over and over again, and you're just thank you so much. This is such a nice night. You take a shower, you feel like you're dirtier than when you got
Yep.
in the shower.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're grateful because it's free, but at the same time I was kind of thinking about like the effect that that has over the years on your version of like self-worth,
Yep.
if you keep
Yep.
accepting that. And especially when it comes to like pay too, your whole bank is paid $10 and you're like, wow, $10, thank you, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it's and or you get yelled at if someone's like, if they if you complain about it and they're like, where's your rock and roll spirit,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know
pretty soon we had started to we used to call it a no dog meat policy, where we were just gonna refuse. We just couldn't. And I think that was if you so Whipping Boy hadn't gotten there. Whipping Boy till, for a large chunk was sleeping on some of these. I remember staying in a trailer park. So I had to take a shower. And I took a shower. I go, hey man, you got a towel? And the guy gave me some towel that was like, I wouldn't have cleaned the dog with this. Honest to God, I would. And as I'm getting out, I say, okay, I'm going to air dry. And as I'm getting out of the shower, one of his buddies burst into the bathroom and starts vomiting all over the place. Like, you know, there was nothing to dry myself with anyway, but now I got to tiptoe around the vomit. And then they said, well, thank God we're not staying here. Where are we staying? And they drive us from the trailer park to this abandoned house that was actually condemned to be torn down. And I think that's where we ended up staying at night. But the dog, and then we also Bambi Anonymous, who used to be in that band Mud Women, I believe, out of San Francisco, who were on Alternative Tentacles. She and a friend of hers had started a booking agency called No AB Booking, and it was no assholes or bullshit. That's what it stood for. A was assholes, B was bullshit. And so she had been in a band, toured a bunch, took it super seriously. And that's kind of around the time we started with the no dog meat policy. So this was not Whipping Boy, but this was Oxbow. And maybe this was 1996. So it
yeah.
took a long enough time. It was about a decade for us of just taking short shit all the time before us to say, no, 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 no. There should be a modicum of professionalism even on the low end, and we're just not gonna take it. We're not gonna and we got hardcore into that. Like if there were money shorts, I remember some guy telling me, well, don't have enough money tonight. And I'm standing by the front of the stage. I'm listening and I'm talking and I'm unplugging the monitor wedge. And he's, what are you doing? And I go, oh, this is about worth what we're owed that you can't pay. So I'm sure when you get the money that you can replace it. So we'll just take this. And he goes, okay, okay, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. And then he goes and he found the $100 that he was trying to stiff us. Um, and so we've gotten, you know, and I guess let's see. So 1997. So I would have been about, I don't know, in my late 30s then or something like that. So my perception of myself and how I want to move through space was affected by, at this point, I was married, I had kids, I was a father. It was like I don't like being away from home, but I believe in this musical art as a mode of communication, and it had value to me. And if you bought a ticket, I believe it has value to you. But it's all of these kind of remoras, these lamprey eels that somehow are in a position to help, but are not very helpful. And I
Mm.
remember one guy, Carl D'Amata, a British promoter, who just cheesed me off really badly. And so I had a newsletter back then, and I started just giving it to him in the newsletter. And because it's like, disrespect begets disrespect. And somebody back channeled me and said, he's going to sue you. There are libel laws in the UK. And I was like, go ahead. Go ahead. I would glad to have a public airing of exactly what he failed to do that got my ire. And of course they talked him out of it. So, but yeah, it's ridiculous, and I mean, largely it's unregulated, at least in the U.S. So anybody with a dream can say, "I want to book a tour, I want to book a, I have a venue," but it's not magic. You got to do some work, you know. And I mean, this still happens. I just did a show in Berlin, and the guy is a hardcore guy I know from 19. I've known him since he was 16. He used to sing for Social Unrest, and then 10 Bright Spikes, became an expat, has been in Berlin the whole time, books me at a book show there. And there's all this screaming right after I get there. He shows up, and the guy who owns the venue, there's a screaming. Well, what he doesn't know, my friend from Social Unrest, what he doesn't know is that I speak a little German as well. And the guy is giving him shit about, you didn't put up any fucking posters. You didn't do anything for the show. You didn't do, and it showed, right? We had like 20 people showed up. Well, it's a book show. I'm fine with 20 people because in the end, I ended up selling over 300 euros of books. So it was a good night for me. But
Mm-hmm.
I did note when I came up to the venue that there were plenty of posters of a show had happened before, but there were none of my posters. He sent me a picture of posters that he had printed up where he spelled the name of the show wrong. And I mentioned this, but he goes, "Oh, they're going like hotcakes." But I have no proof that those made it to anybody's hand at all. So it is, and he's a guy from a band. Why would he do this? How did he do this? It's just, I think, a certain form of mental illness, you know? And again, I was happy because I sold a lot of books. I know nobody else on the planet sold as many books as I did that night in Berlin, but still, it's got very close to not being a good thing because, you know, now I got a nice house. I don't want to leave my house. Now
Yeah.
I'm generally pretty happy in life, and it's if I'm going somewhere, I got to believe it's a valuable thing that I'm doing. So,
Yeah. Yeah, with becoming an author, when did you start like when did you release how many books do you have? One or multiple?
look on the floor here. I've got the Fight book, Fight or
Mhm.
Everything You Ever Want to Know About Asking, but We're Afraid You Get Your Ass Kicked for Asking. And that was on HarperCollins, so a big publisher. And then after that, I put out A Long Slow Screw, which is on Robotic Boot slash Southern. So it was a um, Robotic Boot was an imprint of Hydra Head. And that book had been at Random House, but then I got screwed out of that deal, which is in a long, boring story. And then that book has done great. As a novel, it's been published in France under another title, Paternostra, in French, and then in Italy under another title in Italian. And then about a year and a half ago, put out the memoir, A Walk Across Dirty Water and Straight into Murder's Row. Between those, I had I don't know, not a fellowship, but I was invited to come to this place in Marseille. They said, you can do whatever you want. We'll pay for it for a month. And I go, I don't know if I want to stay away for a month. That's a long time. So no, 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 no. It'll be John Cage did it. And they okay, say John Cage, I'm in. And I go, what the fuck did John Cage do? He goes, well, he wrote a symphony. God, I can't do that. I go, oh, what will nobody pay me for? So I wrote a play. And I get there and it's wonderful dinner, this great spread. It was fucking great. And I got this nice little apartment over this kind of cul-de-sac and just great. And I come down for breakfast and there's, you know, the bomb ass croissants and cheese. And I go, great. And I said, so I'm gonna go do some writing, but when I come back, where are we having dinner tonight? And they go, dinner tonight? I go, yeah, I'm accustomed to eating dinner every night. They go, oh, you should have read the small print.
Oh.
That was a welcoming dinner. We don't we don't pay for your food. We just pay for room, not board. I go, how the fuck am I supposed to eat? I'm here for a month. And they're like, well, you know, you gotta I gotta pay to eat. You know what? Fuck you guys. I'm not eating. So
Oh.
there was food in the apartment, which I
Mhm.
ate.
Mhm.
But for somebody else had left, there was some spaghetti, some garlic. I cooked that up, but that ran out after about 7 days.
Oh my
And then
gosh.
I moved on to like somebody had left some chocolates. So I was eating chocolates. And then the guy downstairs at the little cafe felt so bad for me. At breakfast, he would give me a croissant and some tea. Yeah, you know. And so I did not break down. I did not eat. I had a friend come visit and she had some mercy on me and bought me a one meal or two meals. But outside of that, I lost about 13 pounds.
Oh
But
my
I
god.
but I finished the play, and they published a play which is called in French, and then Southern Studios, Alison Schnackenberg, who was running it, then put it out in English, and it's called The Inimitable Sounds of Love, a threesome in four acts. So that's that's my what was that? What, five books? I think it's five books. So,
Wow.
you know,
Yeah, I feel like I don't know. The more I learned about you, the more I was like, wow, you just have been creating and creating and creating for like
yeah.
years. Yeah. Yeah, it's super cool. And I have to say, like, all of the music that you've been involved with, it's like there's not one feeling of like, oh, this is like lazy in any way. It's like it seems
Yeah.
there's so much work and intention put into it, and
Yeah.
it's so cool. And I just had to say that because
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank
obviously,
you.
yeah.
No, I had a girlfriend I remember once, and she said, "I'm going to a party tonight." And I go, "Great." And I could hear her pause, and I go, "Oh, wait a minute. Was I not invited?" And she goes, "Well, I just wanted to go out and have just a funny, silly, stupid time." I go, "Oh, but it sounds like I'm not invited." She goes, "Well, I just don't see you as a funny, silly, sort of stupid, good time guy." And I was like, I wanted to like, I was gonna, uh, what? And then I realized she's right. So I was like, all right, you and Ann go out and do whatever you're gonna fucking do. I'm staying home because
Yeah,
I like to have fun like anybody else, but silly, stupid, that's not, I think I take myself too seriously for that. So
right. Yeah, do you take your creativity like really, really seriously?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean it's again, it's the problem is I don't know, rock and roll has just all the people who started in rock and roll did rock and roll a disservice, grown men shouldn't be doing. I mean, I don't know. I just started to deviate. When did I start to deviate? I think I started to deviate when I stopped doing hardcore. And I think that and it was really, it wasn't external that made me stop doing hardcore. It was that I wanted to write lyrics that I just couldn't imagine working in a hardcore context. And now that from this vantage point, and now it's kind of curious. It would have been a curiosity. Like the only person I've really seen pull off a lyrical line that I think is sophisticated in a hardcore format is Darby Crash in the Germs. And
Mm.
there's a very people are still arguing about whether he was the last great punk band from LA or he was the first great new hardcore band, and like who does he belong to? Does he belong to punk rock? Does he belong to hardcore? But his lyrics are really phenomenal, and I wanted to write lyrics that were commensurate with my abilities, and I couldn't see hardcore want doing that. And also just why I stopped listening to disco, because I used to be a disco dance instructor. I stopped listening to disco. It stopped meeting an emotional need. Like I would hear it and feel nothing. And I got
Mm.
to that point with hardcore, which caused me to miss some shit that I later rediscovered. Like I completely missed Youth of Today because at that point I was like, I'm listening to Scratch Acid, I'm listening to the Birthday Party. Fuck that shit. I just, I'm listening to Big Black. I was not interested at all. But then I've gone back to listen to Youth of Today. Go, they were great. How could I? I really fucking. I had a chance to see them live, but those kids from Connecticut, who gives a fuck? I really blew that one. I later became friends with Ray Capo and actually had the opportunity to tell him that. And but I became friends with him, sort of our known associates with him because of our connection with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So
Right. Yeah, you do jujitsu. That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
Yeah, my
yeah.
boyfriend Ryan, who connected us, he does jujitsu too,
Oh, really?
and kickboxing.
How many
I
days
love.
a week does he go?
He used to do twice a week. Like he used to do 2 days a week kickboxing and then 2 days a week jujitsu. And
Uh-huh.
then he had like an injury, and then he was getting out of it, and he now he's just doing the kickboxing right now. But
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
but he liked it. He liked it.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, the thing is, if you do it for at least a year, you probably know enough to be able to do it. But I'm upset. I'm like 7 days a week. Actually, now that I moved to Spain, I've adopted the local attitude and I'm more relaxed. So I'm only doing 5 days a week.
Oh,
Give myself the weekend off. Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I want to hear a little bit more about. Do you mind talking a little bit more about the Minor Threat tour, like that
Yeah,
moment
I'm
when
glad.
you,
I'm glad to do it. Yeah.
okay, that moment you said when you saw their van and it was like looked really fancy compared to what you had,
Yeah,
you
I mean
know?
this is weird. I mean, I think partially I've been fired by this kind of insecure inferiority complex because of shit like that. Like, I mean, they were amazingly. I understand the Teen Idols tour was probably like Whipping Boy's first tour. You know, kind of a shambolic affair. But you know, by the time they we encountered them with Minor Threat, it was just it was a blue, if I remember correctly, and it was really, you know, Steve, our guy, was he had spent summers building as a contractor, you know, building decks and fountains and shit for people's homes. And he was like looking at it and it was like, oh, that's really well made. There's the joists, the 2x4s, and the you know, sections for the equipment in the back and carpet on the top. So you could, well, of course, now we know that that was really a bad after the death of D Boon, and that sleeping on top of the loft in the van was probably a really bad place to sleep. That and maybe Cliff Burton, you just, you know, you become a bullet and get thrown out of the van. But at that time, and then they had a sound. I mean, look, the sound system we had was from a $19 cassette player from Mexico called L Tech, EL space Tech, and it was wired into the car so that the faster you drove, the faster it played, the slower you drove. So I listened to a lot of music on that later when CDs became a thing. I was like, my God, I had no idea either how fast or slow the song was because it was a variable speed cassette player, but they had it wired, its speakers, and it was really nice. And of course, they looked at us like we were get troglodytes. You know, like, what are you doing? Like, we don't know. I mean, we were so, I mean, the thing is, the horrible thing is that shit sticks. All right. Like not just so much with me, though it does with me and my perception of me, but I mean, Ian is a year older than me. And the last time I talked to him, I couldn't help but feel like I detected that sun tone in it, like, like he was elder statesmaning me. You know, I was like, hey, buddy, I've actually been doing this a little longer than you now at this point, you know, active application too. So, but it's hard. I mean, that's why I mean, that's why it took me so long with youth of today. I just they were kids. I would take them seriously. So yeah, they had really nice stuff and they had really nice equipment and they were really super professional and they played really fucking well. And the songs were great. The records looked great. I mean, there was you know, the struggle, the Whipping Boys' first record. We hadn't even figured out, and this drives me crazy to this day, that they had to be printing on the spine. Something like, who's going to tell you that? So we lay out the
Right.
artwork, you know, and we did all this hackish stuff with the letter set and stuff, and the record comes out. We go, there's nothing on the spine. Well, I mean, yeah, there's nothing that Minor Threat did that ever looked sloppy. The Teen Idols thing looks like it was intentionally sloppy. That's fine, but not, you know, yeah, but whatever. It's like thinking about, you know, your high school prom pictures. But I did pretty well in my high school prom. There's never any point in my life where I look back and go, I was grossly amateur, mostly because I'm an egomaniac. But in that instance, yeah, the minor, again, compared to Minor Threat, we were just, we were just, and the thing is, we ran into on that tour plenty of people who were much more lunatic than we were. Dog Breath being this band that was a prime example, and they were MDC's roadies, but they were a rhythm section. These guys, we ran out of gas and we're walking along the freeway with a gas can and we pull in this gas station and we see these older guys hanging out of a van like they look like rednecks. They're like screaming at us and we're like, all right, here's fighting time. And they pull up, they say, you Eugene, Steve? We go, yeah. All right, we'll give you a ride back. Okay, on one condition. What? you let us open for you tonight. And we're like, well, that's how we start. So cool. And so they announced themselves as Dog Breath and did a couple of shows with us before they, just disappeared into the night. I've never seen those guys again, man. So there are people out there who are crazier than we were, with less resources than we had, who had, less career aspirations, took themselves much less seriously, and it was just maybe a time for doing it. There was no internet. There was no, everybody was making calls on stolen phone cards, or reverse charging so you wouldn't have to pay for this thing, and or writing letters. That's how I put together the first tour, was via letters. So it was a Wild West type of thing. But the Minor Threat had already gone through that unformatted phase with Teen Idol. So by the time it came to Minor Threat, they had got their shit together. And like I said, everything they had done looked great. So
All right, friends, you know what time it is. It is time to thank our sponsor, Sorry Cables. Sorry Cables is the best cable company on this planet. They make super colorful, fun cables, instrument cables, microphone cables. I use these cables. I love these cables. If you're watching, you can see the cable that I use for this podcast, and they are my favorite cables in the world. So go check them out at sorrycables.com. Thank you, Sorry Cables, for sponsoring this podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to ask about that because you've seen touring over all these years and started with writing letters, and then the internet came, and like, I don't know, you were
yeah,
relying
well,
on maps and stuff.
before then, it was faxes. We put together our first. I just found, because I had to move my entire life when I moved out here. I just found a lot of the faxes that went back and forth between me and the record label in Germany. And it was funny trying to find a fucking fax machine, or worse yet, using the fax machine at work, which was always like, a heart beating thing, because you don't want your boss to, oh, you're getting a fax. Yeah, what are you getting? Because it was still kind of novel and fancy at that point in time. So, what are you getting the fax for? This is my friend, the German. And there, oh God, I mean, I remember seeing some magazine. It was a architectural review. It was writers in their nooks, and they show like Norman Mailer and Cape Cod. He's got this beautiful windswept beach, and he's got this nice oak mahogany desk. He's got this wonderful typewriter, and he's sitting there, and I go, fuck, man. I got an office at Nikon. I worked at Nikon at the time, and I specifically chose this office just for me. I had to share the office with a massive support column for the building. And the reason I chose it was because you couldn't, if my back was to the door, which it was, I blocked the computer screen, so you couldn't see what I was writing. So I wrote
Mhm.
all the lyrics to Serenade in red there, and then I finished a long slow screw there. So I had Eugene. He like, shows up to work early and he leaves late. I love that guy, but that's what I was doing because I was blocking it. But I look, my writer's nook is me looking fearfully around my shoulder, as I hope nobody sees that I'm doing non-work related
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, I go, that was my writer. Now I have a real writer. You can say a real writer's nook. But
Hmm.
but man, it was rough going. And always there seemed to be, I mean, this is maybe what you're getting at. There seemed to be people who were doing it much better, effortlessly, and and I had to assume, or automatically assumed, that they were doing this because they were just making more money and had more resources. The key is making more money. I thought they were making, I knew they were spending more money, but I assumed they were spending money that they were making. And I find out that's not always the case. So, and
Yeah.
I don't begrudge them, whatever. But what I do begrudge is the fact that, it's like I went through a period there where everybody in the gym, right? Because I'm used to be a competitive bodybuilder as well. And I stayed off of performance enhancing drugs for a long time. I didn't start taking steroids until my 30s. And but I remember some guy right around the time, so this is late, it's after I'd stopped taking steroids. This guy was taking steroids, and it was right after they invented Viagra. And so he's on steroids, so that means he has a desire to fuck constantly, and he's taking Viagra, so he can.
Hmm.
And I was like, "You told your wife?" He's like, "Why would I do that?" I go, because suddenly you are this guy, you just gone from being this a normal guy in bed to being this powerhouse with 16-hour fucking sessions. What do you? He goes, it's just I'm just a good so you're lying to her and you're lying to yourself. That's whatever you want to do. And this was some version of that, right? Where like I'm seeing these guys just rolling so big, and I'm like, how are you fucking doing this? I would just start asking, how are you economically making this happen? And some guy said, well, and I knew this to be the case from other people. We sell a lot through Hot Topic. Well, what are you talking about? I just moved 60,000 t-shirt units through Hot Topic. 60,000? Are you fucking kidding me? He goes, yeah. He goes, Eugene, don't get too excited. The people buying those shirts don't know anything about my band. They just like the shirts. I go, oh, okay. And so I got this deal with this company and with this company. We just have we're t-shirt designers. It includes our name, but they're great looking t-shirts. And I go, God damn it, I got to do it. And I'm talking to Scott Kelly from Neurosis, and I'm telling him this plan I got. I'm gonna make these. I can. And he's got this look on his face, and I don't know what the look is about. And then finally, he says, Eugene, and the guy who's telling me about the t-shirt thing, he's like, the dude's got family money, man. I don't hate on him because he has family money. What I'm hating is the fact that he almost made me make a severe tactical error, you know. I mean, I take an accounting of all the shit that I own when I moved, and I still have an unhealthy amount of unsold merchandise in my house going back to 1981. And this guy was going to lead me down this primrose path. I guess it's my own fault if I believed it. I'd have been sitting in here now with 600 shirts, 60,000 fucking shirts that I somehow couldn't move through Hot Topic.
Yeah.
And not knowing that that's not how the guy managed to do all of what he's done. So it's, whatever. Is buyer beware. That I don't begrudge him for not telling me the truth. Um, I'll tell you the truth myself, but I don't begrudge him for that. And I mean mostly because I never pulled the trigger on it. So
Yeah. Yeah, so that kind of like the moment where you're like, "Oh, other people have this extra
yeah,
bag."
I just even there's some people I know who have money. And they've got money in the way that I don't really want to get money, like a loved one died and left him a bunch of stuff, or in this instance, committed suicide. And the guy got money from that, but he's still a hard worker, and what he told me is, I've sat down with a pen and a piece of paper, and I figured out how many shows I need to play a year to maintain what I consider to be my lifestyle. And I think what he's figured out is that he has to play 7 months of shows to be able to live the other 5 months without worry.
Mhm.
So in that other 5 months, what he does is he, records, he makes new records, he does other projects and so forth, and then he just hits the road. The guy, he's got, he's married, but they have no kids, and it works. I mean, I don't want to be on the road 7 months out of the year, no matter what the circumstance. The longest tour I've done has been 3 months, and at the end of it, or maybe three to almost, yeah, maybe 3.5 months, and at the end of it, we were not okay in the head. And we ran into people who a couple of bands, Jucifer, when I interviewed Jucifer, the woman in Jucifer said, well, we're married, but we don't have kids. We don't even have a home now. Our home is a van, and they were just on a perma tour. And I thought, I can't do that. And we ran across this band Chokebore once in France, in Saint Etienne, France. And it's two brothers in the band. I think they were a three-piece at the time, but two brothers. And we're sitting in the food tent, and when you're deep into a tour in a foreign country, you just get used to phasing out, because unless you want to pay attention to the language, you can just not pay attention to the language. But they were speaking English, so I was kind of taking note, and I'm sitting there eating, and one brother says to the other, something. I'm just making this. I don't remember the exact word. He said broccoli. I mean, something as innocuous as broccoli, but clearly there had been some long-standing dispute about broccoli, and they just started fucking fist fighting and shit was flying.
Oh.
And I took my little food and I'm like moving over to the side, like watching them as I mean. But I said, "How long you guys been on the road?" They go, "6 months." And I go, "That's the kind of stuff." Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
one word set them off. That was it, broccoli. So fuck it. So yeah, I try not to. My upward limit has been 3 months, and I clearly, I mean, that's my decision. I clearly can't maintain my lifestyle playing only 3 months of shows. What I can do is to sell records to justify our existence to record labels, and I can also spend 3 months not losing money, and that's all I'm asking for. I mean, I've got plenty of guys say, "Oh, you just got to do it for the fun, man." That's okay, Mr. 25-year-old. You do it for fun. You know, people are inducing me to leave my home on the promise that they can pay me something, and then they're not paying me. I'm not asking for something unreasonable. I'm just asking you to give me what you said you would, right?
Mm,
So if we choose to make a record for $5,000, that's on us. But I haven't done that shit for at least 3 years now. So.
mhm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. What did you mean you haven't like recorded a
no, I
record
haven't.
for
I
them?
mean, I mean, the Boonwell's record label actually pays us realistic money to put out music. So, um, I mean, in other words, the kind of money that anybody should be able to deliver a good record with.
Yeah.
If you use your wits and wiles. But $5,000, $6,000 to do a full length record is madness. I mean, I mean, it's madness if you look at it like, okay, who's going to get paid for this first? Or them? Okay, well, I guess maybe it makes sense. They give you the money first, so maybe they should get paid first. But the reality of it is, you can't. They're subsidizing your record. That's $5,000 less that you'll be out of, but you're still going to be out of it because you're going to get their money first. And then at that point, they're not really interested in. I've only had one record that sold, two records in my entire life that sold really, really well. One was the Fear Power God spoken word compilation. And that did really, really well. And it had a second life at Black House Records where they offered it now on CD, so you can still buy it, and it did well. And then the second one was Oxbow's Thin Black Duke, and that did so well that the record label contacted us and go, "Hey, we think our site's been hacked." "Oh, why? You guys are selling so many records."
Oh my gosh. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah, yeah. Said,
uh,
"No, man, no, fuck it, no. We just got a write up on NPR and Rolling Stone, and Anthony Fantano gave it like a 9, so that's why." Oh, okay, that makes sense.
it's
So,
happening. Let it happen.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, yeah. So basically, so many musicians that I talk, every musician I talk to on here, they say the same thing. They go, "We just want to break even," which to me is like, yeah, that's awesome, but it's sad, right? That everyone's
mm,
saying like, we just want to break even. That's the goal for most
yeah.
musicians. But I know, you've had these bands that, you said Oxbow in your article is like 75,000 in the hole or something like
Yep,
that. And
yeah, yeah.
like how did you sustain yourselves, or yourself through all the years with things being in the negative and
Oh, well, we all had really good jobs.
yeah.
You know, we all had
Mhm.
really good jobs. I mean, my work history, I worked at Intel, I worked at Adobe, I worked at Nikon, I worked at Apple. I was, worked, did magazines, and, magazines. That was a tough gig because they go out of business a lot. So, you had a magazine for 2 years, you really love it, and then they don't make enough money. I did EQ magazine, music recording magazine. I did Code magazine out of LA, a fashion magazine. So managed to, and it's Silicon Valley, so all these companies have stock purchase plans. So pretty soon, like it or not, that you're invested in the stock market. And you're doing because they say, "Oh, we'll put aside some of your salary, and you don't have to pay taxes on it now if you have the stock purchase." So it just seemed a good way to do. The bass player of Oxbow was, like, I think, the number 6 guy at Tesla. a company not started by the creepy Elon Musk, but this great guy, Marty Eberhard, who then got forced out when Musk became a major stockholder. So I'm sure he's got some stocks, and then the drummer was a race car fabricator. So, unbeknownst to many, Neil Young had a race team, and so did who's the singer Brian Johnson from AC/DC had a racing team. So he's like dealing with guys like that, and he's got one kid,
Mhm.
and his kid is I think gone to a state school, so they're not a major outlay. None of us golf, so we don't have. I've got four kids, and I put three of them through college, and my last full-time soul-sucking gig was as a vice assistant vice president at some ad agency, and so, this is why you also can't tour for more than, you're touring on your vacation time, which, plays havoc with your family life as well, right? I mean, oh, it'd be really nice if we go on vacations. You can't. Well, what do you mean you can't? I'm going on tour. Well, maybe we could come on tour. How's that gonna work? I've seen some bands take kids on tours, but first of all, you're jet lagged. Second of all, if we have an 8-hour drive, we finish playing at 2 in the morning. We got to get up at 6 to drive the next day. So it's not fun. So yeah, the sad story is I say we're like the old blues guys. So just want to have enough money to put out the next record without going to the hole, right? So there's an initial investment that gets a notice, notoriety, and that each one that your just initial investment would end up, yeah, but it doesn't, like I said, Oxbow just with the understanding because we were making money at the end that we would another year we could pay this off, and the unreleased record, which is called Follow Me Now in Merry Measure, that would probably do it. We finish out this tour with Bungle, but in the realm of unforeseen circumstances, the band imploded
Mhm.
in the four shows before the end of the Bungle tour, which was a major, nothing that you could have ever expected.
Mhm.
Though if I were an insurance executive, I would have told myself, expect the unexpected. This shit happens all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah. Yeah, but you had a long run though, right?
that's
Of
what ultimately I had to tell myself. I mean, I came up with the idea for Oxbow in 1987, 88, and actually it was going to be a living suicide note. That was my plan, my overly dramatic plan, because I was very upset about a relationship with who? With the girl who wanted to go, who had a funny, silly,
to
stupid
the
time at the
party.
party.
Oh my
She
god.
became like this. She became this kind of world-renowned Nietzsche scholar and real brilliant and really funny and great. But of course, didn't give a care about Oxford at all. It had no effect. It would have been pointless. But what did happen is that people really liked it. We're talking about Fuckfest and then King of the Jews, and that got us to London, and that got me out of the very limited pond of Whipping Boy and into being taken seriously as this other type of musician. So it was worthwhile to live. So
Yeah, yeah. That's
yeah,
good.
yeah.
Do you think like having your job the whole time and like to sustain yourself gave you a an artistic freedom that you might not have had if you were just I don't know, living off in the negatives?
Well, the funny thing is, like my sister, I'm 10 years older than my sister who performs under the name Maya Azucena. And she's done super well. She's won a Grammy. She did a song in 2007 with Stephen Marley called "Dance Dance." She did this kind of rootsy R&B, but this was kind of a reggae inflected tune. So you got a nice gold record on her wall, and she performs with this Croatian artist who's like the Bono of Croatia, this guy named Jaboni, and they'll play in front of 60,000 people. She has been absolutely no plan B kid from day one. Like she applied to one college, right? I had like, okay, this is my dream. Okay, this is my when I've given up all the dreams. I had four or five colleges I applied to, and even through the whole time I've had jobs. I mean, the whole time I've had jobs. I've done music, and she hasn't. And I I just, the amount of intestinal fortitude she's had to ride this into perpetuity is just super. It's phenomenal. It makes me really happy that she's done it. But I also realize seeing her do it that I'm not in a position psychologically. I could never have been that person. I the closest I came to being, abject abjectly poor is when write about in the memoir when I was eating dead grass and stealing food and then discovering the food I'd stolen was like, a 6 pound can of relish and say, well, fuck it, that's all I got. I got to eat what I got. So I couldn't do it. So it has given a certain amount of freedom, and it's allowed us to. I remember recording when we didn't have it, and I was like the first Whipping Boy record where I'm just in the studio and I'm looking at the clock and I was like, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. We gotta wrap it up. We gotta wrap it. I can't pay another hour. And then I remember working on pretty much all of the Oxbow records where that was no longer a consideration, and about how nice indifferent the creative process. I mean, we weren't one of those bands who would go into the studio to create a record. We would still rehearse it extensively and then plan it, and then but so that we were just doing the recording in the studio, not so much creating in the studio. But it was really nice to be able to let that be as creative as possible without looking at the clock and being like, no, we give you a flat fee, boom, boom, in and out. And then, but at that point, we're writing people checks for 10 grand, and we could comfortably do that because we don't golf. Right? So, you're sitting, making, I mean, I went 3 years. To get into real numbers. 3 years, I was working three jobs. And I just put this on Instagram. I posted business cards from the three jobs, and these were at the same time. I was sleeping about 3 or 4 hours a night, working these three jobs, and I made during those 3 years about $300,000 a year. And what I had figured out is that I'd never made that kind of money before, and I haven't made it since. But what I found out is that with that kind of exit, I was surprisingly discovered that I was a generous guy. Oh, like I made sure my friends came to me with money. I gave them the money. Didn't ask for it to, but everybody knows how insane I am about money, so they paid me back. But I never asked for them to pay me back. They paid me back, and including an old bass player needed money to buy a new bass rig to tour with his new band. Ex-girlfriend needed 4 grand to buy a car. Whatever. Does it really make a real difference? You don't have to explain it to me. Just ask. I'll give it. And it was great to have that to be able to record. I funded all of Oxbow up until I believe I started to get sensible about money, either with Narcotic Story or definitely Thin Black Duke, where I was like, we gotta spread the we gotta spread the I can't be the guy, the one who's floating all this. And so bit by bit, it became kind of a communal deal. So for sure, Love's Holiday, and then even Love's Holiday and the unreleased Follow Me Now and Merry Measure were mostly paid for by Greg and Dan. Um, I paid for the videos because I wanted some control over the videos, and I paid for all of the videos with the exception of the John Levy ones, and then the one Lovely Merc, the one that Kristen Hayter sings on. And I didn't pay for that one because I love Zev Dean's the guy who did it, but the money he was asking for it, he had done Mastodon, and then came to us, and he was asking us for Mastodon money, and I was like, nah, sorry, we can't do it. And then the rest of the band went behind my back and just paid him what he wanted anyway. I
Oh
was like,
no.
guys are fucking nuts. Oh, we'll make it back. Well, guess what? Well, now we're
No.
not. So, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that it's all too real, the being in the studio portion where you just have a day to record like 12 songs.
Yeah.
You're like, let's go, let's
Yeah.
go, let's go.
Yeah, that doesn't, I mean, then you have a certain, I mean, like, well, when Albini started recording us, he was like, I think he had a philosophy. He goes, no record that's worth a damn, it takes longer than a week. I'll give you guys, he made an exception, or 5 days. He made an exception for us. I think the longest he gave us was 8 days. But it's still the final outcome was very very much of a live record, and that's not what we want to do. In Ciccarelli, we found somebody who was like, um, was willing to indulge our insanity.
Right.
And got in, was super into it. I've I love this guy like the fifth band member. And what he did with the Whipping Boy reissue, the Muru Muru reissue, Disillusion, was just it almost brings me to tears. It's so it just yeah, he's phenomenal, phenomenal. And I met him when I was editor in chief of EQ magazine, and he and I think it was Ken Johns, or some maybe the guy who did all the Led Zeppelin stuff. I put them on the cover of the Christmas issue, and
Oh, nice.
holding like a red bulb in front of a silver Christmas tree or something. And I said, hey man, I got a band too. I don't know if you'd be interested. He goes, yeah, sure. And he thought, oh, this editor guy just has this like little rock and roll band. Maybe they do some kind of AC/DC covers. He didn't know what. But then he heard the record and then looked at what we were looking at. He was like, okay, like this is way more sophisticated. I'm in. And I think. I mean, we don't end up on Epicac without him, Mike Patton was always like, I mean, we asked him and they were very direct about, you've known about us for a long time. Why did it take you so long to sign us? And they go, we always thought you were more of a live proposition and we just never got your records. And it was Ciccarelli, his ear and his skill is what got them to hear our records, which was really cool. I'm dying inside that I think "Follow Me Now" and "Merry Measure," the unreleased Oxbow record, will not see the light of day in any reasonable way in the short term. Um, I'm suggesting that we release it for free on Bandcamp and just let people, if they want to pay for it, they can. No artwork, just release it. But I don't know if that's being met with any reasonable. I don't know. I haven't talked to those guys in a long time, so.
Right. Yeah. I just want to bring up something that I found to be cool. The
Mhm.
twice or three times in this conversation, you brought up how you just asked for things, or you just like went up to people and you're like,
Yeah.
in your first, hey, can we play?
Yep.
And I think people who are listening, who are doing music, they can learn from that, because that is a powerful thing. Sometimes you just have to ask for
Yeah.
something or throw yourself out there,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of people are scared to do that, but I think it's
Well,
dope.
it's weird. But yeah, they should be scared though, because there's a correct alchemy to it. And I'll give you an example. Um, like I approached, say, Diamanda Gallis, and I said, "Hey, would you like to sing on one of our records?" And she said, "Well, let's talk about that." And so we talked back and forth about it, and we became very friendly. And at one point, a friend of mine had wanted to go, was living in another city, I think Philadelphia, and was wanting to go to her show there. And I said, sure. And I said, hey, Diamanda, could you put my dude on he and his wife want to show up to show? Would you mind? And she goes, oh no. Well, she went one step over. She not only put them on the list, but gave them backstage passes, which he used. He and his wife go backstage and they're talking and he's like, hey, outside of the band that I'm in, outside of the projects I've been in with Eugene, I do my own thing. Would you be interested in? And she
Wow.
just looked at him and she was like, you were here because Eugene asked me to put you on the list. And she just let it hang there.
Oh,
Why? She thought that was majorly disloyal and just would not fucking have it. So there's gotta be a right time. An ex of mine corralled um, a guy who I was making music with, a guitar player, and said, "Hey, I have a band too. Maybe we could." And he was like, mentioned it to me, and I was like, "Don't do this. Don't do this. A protocol to that. What she should have done is come to me and say, "Hey, would you mind terribly if I use your look?" That's what Chris Spencer did when he wanted to use Nico from to play guitar on that Celine record that they put out together. Is it Celine or Salon, something like that? And he came to me and said, "Hey, man." Do you do side work? I go, yeah. You need vocals, I'll do your vocals for you if I like the music. And he goes, and what about Nico? And I go, well, you talk to Nico about it. He goes, you wouldn't mind? Go ahead. You guys do whatever you want. Um, so there's a weird it's got to be sort of it's weirdly organic, right? And I think when we asked like the circle jerks, it was just so weird that it was organic. I mean, I've been on the wrong side of that, and you could feel it. And I
Mm.
interviewed Lawrence Fishburne, and the whole interview, I'm telling myself, don't fucking do it, don't do it, don't do it. And at the end of the interview, I was like, when am I ever going to see this guy again? Fuck it. And I said, hey man, I don't know if you're a big reader, but you might want to, here's a copy of my novel. And I pushed it across the table, and the look on his face was like I just had shit on his plate and
Oh
pushed it across. I
no.
was like,
Yeah.
fuck, fuck. I 100% guarantee that within minutes of me leaving his private cigar club where I did the interview with him, that he threw that shit in the garbage. And
Mm.
and I would venture that he didn't upbraid me immediately because he thought there might be some sort of physical repercussion. Like anybody who was crazy enough to do that in Hollywood, who knows what he's capable of. So he didn't say anything at the time, but I realized that was that was not organic. I should just
Mm.
done the interview, and if you know, like how I became friendly with Lydia Lunch. I did an interview with her, and I was like, okay, I'm going to be professional about this. That was just the interview. It felt like we were becoming friends, but I don't know. And I just left it. And then she sent me
Mm.
a postcard with this great line that I loved. We're going to be friends. Let's dig no graves before our times. And that was it. And I didn't get any letter like that from Lawrence Fishburne, right?
Yeah.
So I shouldn't have given him the book, but whatever. Well, it was a lottery ticket. I took a shot. So,
Yeah. That's cool.
Hello, friends. Another quick break in the conversation here. And I just want to let you know that I have something really special for the musicians listening right now. For those of you who aren't aware, when I'm off the road, I'm a certified hypnotherapist, which means I use hypnosis to help people with different things. However, I do specialize in working with musicians. So, for a special welcome back season 3, I made a free recording for musicians. And this is especially for you. I do work with non musicians too, but I figured since this is a music podcast that I would help the musicians on this one. So check out the links in the description to access your free recording if you want to try hypnosis. All right, back to the conversation.
I just wanted to talk a little bit too about like you make music that's obviously not for everyone, right?
right.
It's not like easily digestible. Have you ever had like a feeling to try something else, or like what I'm trying to say is that you've been so true to yourself, which is the coolest thing ever. But also because of that, the record label thought there was the site was getting hacked because you were selling all these records and things.
Mm.
Like, I don't know, can you talk a little bit about how like staying true to yourself has been for you as an artist, like over all these years, and even though it might not have this big financial return on that.
I don't know how to do it any. I mean, this is I'll give you an analogy that maybe will help it make sense. Like I'm growing up, I'm 18, 19, and people would invite me to their places, with the girlfriends, friends, whatever, you go to their places. And at a certain point, probably in my mid 20s, I start to have a sneaking suspicion, right? And but I don't know what's happening. And I go to these places, man, these people have like nice shit. Well, I know we work together. I know they don't have more money than me. So what? And then finally, it took me until I was like probably 35 to realize, oh, I tell you what it was. I went over to some woman's house, and I got an eerie feeling when I was in. I look around and I realized that pretty much she had bought everything from a Pottery Barn catalog and put it in her fucking place. It looked just like a spread from Pottery Barn, and that's when it dawned on me, oh, you should design your places, right?
Oh.
Like I had a bunch of books. I was like, where am I going to put those books? Oh, I'll put them in that milk crate. And then you get a second milk crate and a fourth, and go, fuck, I got a lot of milk crates. I'll get a piece of plywood and put that over so that I could put the other books on top of that milk. I'd never dawned on me that people design their place. Now I'm living in a house that was designed. I saw this house in a PDF before I actually sat in this house, right? So I go, you designed this house. This is how it works. So the idea that people like a Justin Timberlake or somebody who is majorly successful actually engineered and orchestrated this stuff is fucking mind blowing to me. It never dawned on me to and if you hear some of the stuff I've done, you can hear I can actually sing. But I remember Bob Dylan in Don't Look Back, or he said, I could sing better than Caruso if I wanted to. I just don't want to. I was like, okay. I mean, and then I was being interviewed by some magazine in Japan. They were talking about selling out. I go, look, if somebody wants to give me tons of money to do what I'm already doing, good. They can use it to sell this or that. I don't give a shit. But that's not what you're talking about. When you talk about selling out, you talk about Eugene trying to do, I don't know, trying to do hip hop, R&B, some music that actually makes money. And I, I mean, I'm a never say never guy. I got called by Matthew Barney's, uh, one of his co-creators, and he said, "Hey, Eugene, do you know anybody who sings R&B?" I go, "Yeah, me." He goes,
Uh-huh.
"Really?" I go, "Yeah, sure. Yeah, what the fuck? Why not?" He goes, "Can you send me uh we're really looking for somebody who could sing like R. Kelly." I go, well, I don't know if I could sing like R. Kelly, but I could sing R&B. And B. And he was like, yeah, could you send us something? So I did, got one of those karaoke machines, and I sang the Isley Brothers Between the Sheets, my version of it.
Mhm.
And I've never heard from them again.
Oh no.
So, but you know what? There's a guy out of Memphis who had heard or got inkling of that, and he signed me on to do. He had me come out and sing with the Jim Jones All Stars. I sang two songs with them at this famous studio in Memphis, and then he got this idea. I want to do a standards record, and I want you to sing on it. And he picked the songs, and he just sent me the first song that he mixed that I sang, and it's the old Sammy Day, I Gotta Be Me, and it's so fucking great because it sounds almost good. Right? But then it has this like weird like HP Lovecraft, Eugene S. Robinson things on the edge where it just feels like it's falling apart. Like I can't wait for the whole record to come out because it's almost like Iggy did a standards record, but he's got this kind of great baritone voice. But this was
Mhm.
just sounds. I pulled it off, but it just every song I sound absolutely like I'm about to. It's got the spirit of like Oxbowian spirit, but even though these are standards, so it's pretty fun. But I don't know what I mean. The closest I came to having those career notions, I guess, was when the time when we were playing. I think we played one show with the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and I was like, I can sing better than that fucking guy. No, I should be able to. And the songs aren't super sophisticated, but again, I I don't know what would have to happen again to get my boxes out of milk crates or to get
Mhm.
me on a record that the world goes, hot diggity dog, I want to buy that. I don't know what would have to happen. I don't, I mean, and I tell you the God's honest truth, I don't really think about it that much. I
Mhm.
don't think if my careerist notions died right around the time I got my first job. And I got my first job out of college, but it took me about a year and a half out of college. Before then, I was moving furniture, painting houses, and hanging sheetrock. And I got hired my first job out of college, my first real job out of college, because I got some rinky-dink, weird kind of boiler room job that lasted for about 6 months with these lunatics, and some of them who went to prison later. But my first real job, I was hired by a German guy, two German brothers who grew up in Argentina. So make of that what you would.
Okay.
But they had hired me because for a defense publication because the Japanese woman who was the head of human resources had nixed an employee that they wanted to hire because she was black. And they said, we're going to go out and find somebody who's black that she can't possibly nix. And they found me. And I had two resumes at the time. One that mentioned just that I'd gone to Stanford, and then one that I mentioned that I was at Stanford, but I was also a member of the Black Students Union. And that was the one that got me my first gig because they wanted to. And as it turned out, the woman's name was Jane Okashima. She ended up being one of my biggest advocates and just loved me, you know. So there you go. Another another racist converted.
Wow.
Yeah, no. So and they were it was a great company to work for. They were That's when I got to the Bill Cosby movie Leonard Part Six, and they were super excited about that and gave me some personal time off to film, the 3 weeks on the movie. That wasn't the time vacation time that I was touring, so it was perfect. It was a good company. So,
That's
but
cool.
yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna ask because I know you said your careerist notions died then, right? When you
Yeah,
got
because
that
because
job.
I had money coming in, and whatever magic had to happen. I mean, keep in mind, Ciccarelli got nominated for producer of the year for a Grammy in 2007 for one of the records he produced was ours, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was not the Thin Black Dude, but it was Narcotic Story. So he had produced us, the Shins, and Kurt Elling. And so we got to go to the Grammys and got to see it. And I remember I love this guy now for non-musical reasons. He's
Mm-hmm.
just a funny guy. But I remember as one of you're sitting there at the Grammys and people are playing, and I see Brad Paisley play. And I was disgust. I felt like Elvis shooting the TV when Robert Goulet came on because everything about Brad Paisley was perfect. The hat was perfect. The clothes were perfect. The face was perfect. The guitar was perfect. The playing was perfect. The show was perfect. It was just so much. You could choke on all that perfection, you know? And I
Mm-hmm.
just fucking hated it. I just hated it, hated it, hated it. But then I saw him do something. He apparently hated it as well because he had this late in life kind of transformation where he became this kind of, he's got a great sense of humor. He's just more of a stand-up comedian with a guitar than this, what Hollywood had turned him into, this hat cowboy country guy thing. I don't know what he was doing. So we got pretty close. That was a very funny because they say, and producer of the year. And I start to stand up because I figure Chicker is gonna be Chickarelli. So I start
Mm-hmm.
to stand up, and I actually do stand up. And they say Mark Ronson and Amy Winehouse. So now I'm standing up. So
Yeah.
I have to kind of adjust my trousers like that's really what I was standing up for and sit my ass back down. I should have known my sister, the Grammys 2007 where she won a Grammy. And I called her. I didn't know she was there. I called. I go, oh, I gotta give it to my sister. I say, hey, guess where I am? She goes, I don't know. I said, I'm at the Grammy. She goes, really? I go, yeah. She goes, me too. I go, I go, well, who are you? Where are you sitting? And she looks around. She goes, oh, I'm sitting next to Dave Grohl. Where are you
Oh,
sitting? And I look and I see I'm sitting next to Yoko Ono. And that's when I knew one of us was going to win that night, and it wasn't me.
oh.
You know, they don't put you next to Yoko Ono if you're winning. We were up in the balcony. So she got her gold record that night. But yeah. So that's as close as I've been to any sort of significance. And did it feel good? Well, not especially. I mean, I have a friend um, who sold 19 seconds of one of his songs to a film company for $20,000. And when I asked him how that felt, he was like, "Great." So being at the Grammy was like, So
Mm-hmm.
the funny thing is, it was L.A. Right? So afterward, we go out for drinks. We go to this bar. And the guy at the door is looking at us because we're dressed nicely. He goes, what are you guys doing? He said, we just came from the Grammys. He goes, oh, did you win? And we're like, we were nominated, but we didn't win. He's like, So there's a front door. The bouncer was talking to us. So we make our way through the crowd, it's maybe 30 feet into the bar. And then we sit down at the table. And then one of us gets up to go get some drinks. But before they can even get to the bar, the waitress is there at the table with fucking drinks. Did we order these? And she's like, no, no, we heard though. So this is our consolation prize. Congrats, guys. At least you made it to the fucking LA. we weren't out walking fast. So the time it took us to get from the door, figure out what table we're going to sit then, the word had already spread through the whole crowd.
Wow.
LA is just tuned differently for this kind. I mean, that's the business of the town. They take that shit really seriously. I was the only lunatic that thought we stood a good chance of fucking winning. Chickarelli didn't even think that we were going to win, you know? So, and we shouldn't have. Amy Winehouse and Mark Ronson, that was great. I fully support that choice, you know? So, but
Yeah. I know you're like super happy for your sister and her success. I'm
yeah.
sure over the years you've seen bands that you've started around the same time as, or like they came later, just like shoot up into the sky. And like
Mm.
how's that been for you? Like
I don't feel, if they're friends of mine, I don't feel bad about that at all. I mean, you know, my hatred of the Red Hot Chili Peppers is well documented, but that has to do with the show we played with them turning into a riot, and then me seeing Flea about 3 weeks later and him trying to run me down on Sunset Boulevard,
what?
where I was incidentally, I was there to mix, to a master, maybe Fuckfest or King of the Jews. So it was when John Golden was working at Sunset Sound, and I was standing there and I go, "Oh shit, there's Flea," you know, and his blue Mercedes with the Jimi Hendrix sticker on the back. I was like, "Yo, bro," and and I go, "Oh," and the bullfighter in me goes, "I'm not moving. I'm not gonna move." And he's gunning the car for me. I go, you know, here, I'm just prepared, relaxed as can be. I'm gonna get hit, you know. And he gets so close to me, the side mirror, like, made me even tore my jacket. He pulled off. I was like, fuck those guys. Like, fuck them.
Oh,
And we have friends in common. We have friends in common. But and finally, the most movement there's been the last few years, you'll find me saying, well, the band is good. And I reserve my hatred for the, you know, the for Kiedis, who is really not talented at all. In fact, when I was editing EQ, this is right when I met the guys who created autotune.
wow.
Because all of a sudden Kiedis could fucking sing, you know.
Uh,
Sometimes I wish that I whatever that fucking song is about the California with the bridge or whatever. And I was like, how can this guy fucking sing? And the guy was like, that's auto tune. That's what we do, baby. And of course, people couldn't figure out why he didn't sound that way live, but they didn't care. And then they came up with a live version of auto tune. So, I mean, what I was glad about was that the hip hop guys just took it and did ridiculous things with it. So, so it's another studio tool. That's cool. But to use it to actually try to fool people into thinking you could sing, that's dirty, pool. I don't like that. But whatever, whatever. All my other, I don't have many friends who have rocketed to the top. Like Neurosis did really well for a period of time, and I was super happy for them. ISIS did really well for a period of time, and they were great supporters of Oxbow, and that was really what Dillinger Escape Plan, even though they're technically sort of, you know, just doing some shows, and they had Buñuel play one of the shows we had. This is what I had to cancel, which killed me because the other shows that we were going to do up in so the Portland, Seattle, Vancouver, LA, San Diego, they were like Live Nation was supposed to kick in $6,000, and then they were the dithering in the last second they pulled out, and then you know it just the money was just getting funny, and I was like, hey, you know what? No, 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 no. I'm not leaving the house for this. You know, I got to have firm guarantees at this point to leave the house because I'm not doing that Oxbow thing again of like, well, we'll make it back next time. You know, we're getting to the point where there are no next times. There's that great line from that song by 16 Horsepower. You're making a left turn on a place where there ain't no maybes. You know, there are no more next times at this point. So, but friends who have made, I mean, I was surprised to find out that I was in Kurt Cobain's diary. Somebody said, "Oh, do you remember playing with him?" And I said, "Honest to God, I don't. I don't." I mean, you know, I think probably what he was referencing was one of the last tours, big tours that Whipping Boy did with DC3 and some other band. I imagine I met him there, but you know, I remember him from when he was a normal guy. You know, I'm talking about Bleach. There was no reason for me to feel like he was anything more significant than any other person. But when they hit big, I was super happy. I mean, I was only slightly churlish when somebody called me and said they had killed himself, and I was like, hey, man. if a guy like that can't be fucking happy, there's no hope for the rest of us. He was like, and then the guy who called me to tell me hung up the phone because he was so disgusted with my attitude.
Oh,
I was,
I mean,
he eventually came back around, and I also came back around and realized like, yeah, maybe that shouldn't have been the first thing out of my mouth, but whatever. So, but yeah, I can't think of anybody who's really made it who begrudges who I'm begrudging. I mean um the least the person who surprised me the most who's made it is Nick Cave, but we were never known associates. We did a show together with Barry Adamson at the London Jazz Festival at Royal Albert Hall, and that was my first personal interaction with the guy. But I was a huge birthday party fan and was glad to do the show. But of course, given that it's me, by the end of the show, I had somehow pissed him off. So, oh, he doesn't speak to me. And I've been to their shows because I'm friends with Barry Adams since I've been to the when he had Barry playing. He said, "Come on to the show," come to the show, but I've not tried to talk to Nick again. I don't know what it was, but I'm super happy that he's doing what he's doing. I do not begrudge him at all. I'm glad that he's turned to is he even Sir Nick Cave? Have they given him a royal appointment yet? I just say crack. I think it's really funny. I mean, this is a guy again. What did you sell out? Those who sell out are those who can sell out. I don't. Some of us we just can't sell out. We just can't do it. And he's made it despite. I mean, it's not like he's expanded his repertoire. He's not. He's not he's not doing club music. I mean, he's Nick Cave. He's doing Nick Cave shit, like Chuck Berry said, Chuck Berry music. So I love that that happens, and I love that there's. I'm not begrudging anybody like that who's organically just killing it. I don't why how could I begrudge that? I
yeah.
mean, I think about people who are from the same world, like Gwen Stefani. Like, I don't know why she's married to that fucking creep, but whatever. This is weirdly personal. That it's not about
Yeah.
music at all.
Yeah.
So, but whatever.
Um, yeah, you're hilarious. I just have a couple questions left for you.
Okay.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask because you did mention autotune.
Yep.
Um, the world is like the music world's going crazy right now because of AI.
Hmm.
And do you see it as the same as like autotune, like a tool that musicians are going to use, or do you see it as some sort of threat to musicians? I'm really
No, no,
curious
no,
what
no,
you
no,
think.
no, no. I don't. I mean, they've had a couple of bands that were created by other two bands that were actually selling records, and what, good if that's what you want. And I mean, these guys don't have to worry about vacation time. They don't worry have to get ripped off at clubs. It's just like the monkeys thing gone high tech. But I have to say, the guy who directed the Oxbow video for Lovely Merc, he part of how he softened the blow about how expensive that video was is I want to do a second one for you. And this one, if you don't mind, we'll do using AI and we'll do it for free. Like, so in other words, you're getting two videos for the price of one. And we said, okay, cool, because it was just so weird and disturbing. So one of the records from Love's Holiday was, and it's pretty obvious. I think it's the night started burning, the night the room started burning. Maybe that's it, or the second talk. It's one of those tunes, and it's just so weird. It's just so weird and so cool, and we didn't even think about it. We were happy to have it and put it out. And then there was a comment, all this vitriol about it being AI. And I remember he's a famous guy. He's dead now. Andre Brower, the actor. We lived across the hall from each other freshman year of college, and I was an actor, right? So, a lot of our first plays were together. He was clearly so much better than me that I was like, okay, I'm gonna do music. I can't ever fucking compete with this guy. But um, but he went through a weird period where he had started doing what I did. And at first I go, oh, flattery is just a serious form of imitation is a serious form of flattery. And I was kind of flattered. But then it started to kind of bug me, right? Like, I mean, up to like I had a distinct way I used to wear my belt. Because I had a reason for it. He asked, why do you wear your belt that way? And I explained it to him. So he started wearing his belt that way. And he started, and I was like, and I got annoyed. And then I realized, you know what? If your stuff is so easily duplicatable that people are duplicating it, then you got nothing to complain about. You got nothing. And I remember having that theory. There was a guy, Mark Sperry, who was doing the same thing to Henry Rollins, up to and including. I just found some letters from Rollins to me, and then I found some letters from Sperry to me, and their handwriting was eerily the same. It was clear that Sperry had either internalized it or purposely set out to their hand. It was just crazy. There's so much the same. And I found out that it really bugged Rollins. And I thought about the thing that I went through with Brower, where it really bugged me at first. I liked it at first, and then it bugged me, and then I came out the other side with like, yeah, I'm all right with that. I franchised myself, you know. And of course, right around the time I had that thought, Brower stopped being me, became his own person, and he's off to the races and won all his Emmys and all that shit. So it's kind of good for him. But I'm not concerned about AI because and somebody at Jiu Jitsu was saying to me, I was complaining about Lana Del Rey, and he was like, "What do you give a shit? What do you give a shit? What do you care? If the music comes on and you hear it and you like it, that's all you need to know." And I said, "No, I'm sorry. I'm from the generation that is big on authenticity, and I'm big on authenticity." And I'll give you an example. I love Sade, but I'd read an interview with Sade where she said to the interviewer, and maybe she was irked with the interviewer. She said, "You realize I'm not the subject of my songs."
Mhm.
And the interviewer goes, "What?" And she goes, "I'm not prone to these emotional flights of hysteria. That's just not how I'm built, you know?" And so, kind of what she was saying is, I'm inhabiting a character in order to carry this music, but that's not who I am. And in her instance, I gave her a buy. I was like, yeah, whatever. I still like the music no matter what. It evokes something in me that is worthwhile. But generally, I'm a big authenticity guy. And I tell you, people get pissed off about AI and writing. I read AI writing all the time, and I know it's AI writing. I know it's AI writing. It makes choices where I'm a writer, and I know it's making word choices that humans don't make. Now the question is, 10 years of AI, and I asked AI to give me Eugene Robinson lyrics, and they were hilarious. It was just risible. And so, 10 years of reading actual Eugene Robinson lyrics, Eugene Robinson writing, maybe AI can generate stuff that will fool people, but to what end? If I mean, if
Mhm.
I could have made it pay, I would. What fucking computer is going to make it pay? Fuck it.
Yeah.
If the computer can figure it out. So I don't feel like it's a real threat. I think it'll dupe the easily duped. And but I also have come to the strange realization that that's everybody. That's what the average is about. That's the big chunk of the middle. Like, look, the movie The Departed. Have you seen it?
Uh, is that a scary movie?
No, no, no.
No.
It's with
Okay.
Leonardo DiCaprio and Martin Scorsese and Mark Wahlberg playing these kind of
Nice.
Boston detectives. Well, anyway, Martin Scorsese directed it, and it's about snitches and rats. It's this kind of gangster drama. And in the last scene, there's a camera pulls out from the state capitol from some penthouse apartment, and then you see a rat running along the balcony. I'm like, Jesus, how fucking stupid! We got it. We got it 45 fucking minutes ago. You don't have to. And of course, that was the first movie that he won the big Director of the Year award for the Oscar. I was like, I guess, Ciccarelli was like, that's what he did for Oxbow, right? He was like, I understand what you guys are doing, but you already did that crazy shit. Let's try something else. Let's do it, and he just kind of gave us a haircut, you know? And it fucking, you listen to the Thin Black Duke, and finally people could go, oh my God, these guys are genius because they could hear it. All the shaggy split ends were all kind of cut on. They could understand it. So maybe there's some benefit to catering to that what's average. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I still listen to Thin Black Duke and I love it because the craziness is still there for me because I wrote the words, right? So, um, but I don't know. I don't know. AI, I mean, technology. Yeah, it drives me crazy. It guys drives me absolutely crazy that the cats at Spotify and all these music companies are driving expensive automobiles while sending me checks for 17 cents. I just got a
Yeah.
check from somebody from Facebook for a penny.
Oh, oh my God. Hey, at least it's It's a penny, you
That's
know.
hey, I'm not gonna. Hey, it's a penny I didn't have before. The number two guy at Facebook is a friend of mine. Used to do jujitsu with him, and I was gonna send him a screenshot of it. And go, thanks, bro. But I was like, I'm not in a position to make him pay. When I was training with him, I could take it out on him on the mat, but he's too far away from me now. So I just, it's a penny. Put it in the bank.
Oh,
You know.
that's
So
funny. My
yeah,
Facebook page recently got monetized out of nowhere, and I think I have some pennies coming in right now. And
yeah,
I've just
yeah.
been like changing my profile picture, and I'm like, come on.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, this is the thing. I'm glad to, I like to have what I call a one-way wallet. I'm glad to take in money, and I'm really not glad to spend it. So,
Yeah,
no.
yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that because I was gonna ask about Spotify as well. What you were thinking of that these
Yeah, I
days.
don't, yeah, I'm not. So what turned me off to it was somebody, I had heard somebody online was complaining about I mean I don't know how it works, so but he had apparently put together saved up all his music, and he had done, I guess you build your profile and you save your library, and then he had lost it, and then he had no recourse. The company wasn't helping him get it back, and so this guy was online complaining about, and I was like, fuck that. I'm a hard like, I got this, it's hard. I can play it when I want. And I mean, even Albini was like, fuck that. You won't be able to play that in 10 years. And really, I've had to buy extra stuff to be able to play CDs around
Yeah.
here. So, but yeah, I don't know. I can't. This guy Daniel Eck, I find. But listen, you know what? I can't hate on these guys too much, because Ciccarelli told me an interesting story. And he told me that he had been approached by Fanning. I think it was pretty sure it was Fanning in the early, before Napster was even a thing. And he took Fanning around to all of the label guys, big shots at labels, and said, I got this kid, and I think you should listen to him. And so Fanning does his Dog and Pony show, talks about file sharing and blah, 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 blah. And you're talking about these guys now, these like 60-year-old record executives. They don't know tech computers from nothing. Their secretaries still type up their shit for them, right? And they just looked at him and was like, great, thanks. Next. And so according to Ciccarelli, he said, they were all given a chance to bring this shit in house and own it, and they chose not to, and now that's where we are, you know.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, when we played Milan with Bungle, we had like 6,000 people there, and we're like, my God, we're at least going to be able to make some money at merch. And then, our guy comes back and says, there's a problem. Well, what's the problem? Well, only the venue can sell your merch. I go, okay, but they want 25% to do that. I go, ooh, that's kind of pricey. Okay, well, fuck it. That's what we got. We'll just raise the price by 25%. He goes, yeah, but that's not all. I mean, well, the venue is also going to take a percentage. I go, what percentage? The 20%. Ooh. So
Wow.
45% of our t-shirt sales, our merchandise goes to how does that even make any sense? Fuck it, we'll sell it from the stage. So you can. It's against the law. I go,
Whoa.
so what do you mean? It's because if they catch you doing it, you will be fined. Okay, so we will tell people, we'll pull up the van out in front of the venue, and we'll sell it out of the van. I go, same thing. You'll get stopped by an inspector. Do you have a license to sell? And you'll be, so we did not sell a single piece of merchandise that fucking night. 6,000 people. Because who's going to pay the extortionate? The name of the game at this point is getting all the money you can, and people stealing music. So it's like, oh, play live and you'll make the music back. Well, okay, so bands are playing live and bands are playing. We can't have that. We can't have the bands actually make the money. So 45% going to fucking t-shirts. And I mean, you start to think about, Ian Mackay, and, oh, we're not in the t-shirt business. Yeah, but I mean, that's easily 55% of the money that I would make in other words, there's what you're getting paid by the venue to play, or whatever, what your agent negotiates. Say, okay, we're going to give you guys 4 grand to play this show. I would easily, no matter if it was a show that paid 4 grand, I would easily be able to sell more than 4 grand of merchandise that night.
Mhm.
But but that's they're biting into your merch money, and some people have had even horror stories where their merch has been seized, you know. And I know they tried to do this at at fight venues because there's a fight company called Tap Out that was making tons of money, and so they finally started saying, "Look, we're providing the venue, we should have a piece of this." And I remember Caesar Gracie, one of the Gracie family, was sneaking T-shirts in, selling them under the table, and afterward they were like, "Hey, we need to settle up and do an accounting on your shirts." And Caesar was like, "Yeah, yeah," and he's running from the venue with his shirts, like
Oh,
falling out, and he ran out, didn't pay him a fucking nickel. I was like, I love that guy. I love
yeah.
that guy. But it gets harder to do that if you've got a van and equipment and they're inspectors and you're in another country. So you just take the suck and don't sell your stuff. So
Yeah, people might not realize that. Like some of the venues, they make you give them a count in the beginning of the show, and then the
yep,
end of the show,
yep.
they want you to sit there and count all of it with them.
Yeah,
It's
you
the
know, we
worst.
we went through that. We went through that first blush of pay to play thing, and this great guy. I was the only one who thought he was a great guy. Bobby Corona, who I think is dead now, but was used to book all the Keystone San Francisco, the Stone in San Francisco, Keystone Palo Alto, and for some reason he took a fucking liking to me. Like a super crazy like I love this guy. Like he was like this mafia guy, but every time I see this guy, he's smiling. It was just because he cracked. Just fucking. As a New Yorker, he just fucking cracked. He was so mafia. It just cracked me up. I felt like I was back home, and he made us do. He was notorious for locking bands' equipment in the venue. So you didn't sell enough tickets tonight. You come back with that. I gave you 100 tickets. You sold 13. Fuck you. Come back with the money for 100. You get your stuff. And we sold tickets for him a couple of times, and we did a great job. We sold all the tickets, but he never made us do that again after the first. And so, what does that say to me? It wasn't really about value for him. It was about maybe the band's trying. If I give you 100 and you sell 13, fuck you. You're asking me to do your job, which is to induce people to come to your show. No. I mean, he knew we twice we did it. We sold all the fucking tickets. He knew that, okay, if they can do that easily, then they've got to follow, and I don't have to. And I love this guy anyway. He's always smiling, you know. And then so I'm trying to look at it from both sides. Like I remember the only time I pulled some weird rock star shit was Oxbow was playing in Seattle, and this is 1994 maybe, and the club owner comes out and says, "Funny thing happened today." And I go, "Really? What?" I got a good sense of humor. I'm glad to have funny. What happened? He goes, "I lost my bank card." I go, "Oh, well, that's not that funny." He
Mhm.
goes, "Well, yeah, but you know what?" I go, "You have any friends?" He goes, "Well, no, so how are you planning on paying us?" He goes, "Well, let me think about it and then I'll just work it out." Okay, fine. We load the gear in, we do sound check. We're setting up. I'm sitting around reading American Tabloid by James Elroy. I remember this distinctly. And the other band that was playing support for us, they set up and they play. Okay. And the show starts. Like I think they're still doing sound check. The show starts and there's nobody in the fucking venue. And the band on stage, it maybe in defensive posture, is kind of smirking. Like one guy in the band has a girlfriend and she's in the audience. And I stand up from my book and I go to the club owner. I go, "Did you find your friends?" He goes, "Friends?" I go, "The ones with the money." He goes, "No, no, I haven't." I said, "So you have no, do you live at home?" He goes, "Well, no, I don't." I said, "Can you have somebody that you know that you're related to wire you the money?" The guy goes, "No." And I look at the band and they're smirking like, "Yeah, these guys suck. Nobody showed up to see him." And I go, "We're leaving." He goes, "What do you?" He goes, "No, if you come back tomorrow." I go, "No, we're on tour. There is no tomorrow for us here. We have to be 300 miles from here tomorrow. So that means we have to leave tonight. So we're leaving." And it was great watching this band who apparently only had one friend in this guy's girlfriend. So I blame them majorly for this. Watch them on stage as we load our gear. from just the one audience they had was us, and we're not, fuck you, we're not playing this. You guys live here and you have nobody. So we like took our stuff and we get out to the van, and the guy and his bouncers are blocking the van.
What?
And they say, you can't do this. And I go, no, no, we're doing it. And they're like, look, this is really unprofessional. You can't do. And I said, you're about to see really unprofessional if you don't move from in front of this fucking van. And at that point now, I was carrying something to put the equipment down, and they understood it correctly. We're going to be fighting if you don't let us load this equipment out. And so they said, well, you guys are assholes. Yeah, fine, move. And they moved, and we loaded it out and took off. Never done that before, never done it since. But, that was part of the no dog meat thing. Now, I don't think it's funny. I don't think it's funny. You made this promise to pay. It's not my fault you didn't put up the posters. You could have had us interviewed in the Rocket. You could have had us on the local radio station. We're friends with fucking Bruce Pavitt from Sub Pop. You could have done all these things that you could to get people to come to this fucking show. We've
Mhm.
always had good shows in Seattle. We could have done any of those things. You did none of them. And now you
Mhm.
lost your bank card? Nah, 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 nah. Ciao, ciao. So,
Yeah.
yep,
Yeah. Not cool.
not cool.
Not cool. Um,
So
I
yeah,
just
when you
want
get when you get speeches about the true spirit of rock and roll, you're talking to somebody who has a
to.
dream about rock and roll and not a reality of rock and roll, So
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a huge part of why I did this podcast too, because there's so many people who have like the dream of it, and I'm just
yeah,
like, I want them to know, I want them to
yep,
know what they're getting into, and like, how to manage the whole industry and
and
what to,
expectations.
and expectations. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Like, and I my personal story, not this isn't about me at all, but like I quit my job when I was 23 and like
hmm,
went on the road and just did the thing and then became super super poor.
yep.
And I there's things that I regret about that and things that I don't regret about that. And I think um I had no idea. I thought like, oh, you get to this specific level, you open for Mr. Bungle, you do this, like that means you're living
Yeah,
on music, like you're
yeah, yeah,
okay. And it's like the deeper you get into it and you're sitting at the Grammys and you're just like
yeah.
the deeper you get into it, the more you realize like, oh, this is kind of a dream. It's just like this
Well,
curtain
but
and
but but also too, it felt really bad to me to take what really felt like hard-earned money that you were making from shows and to use it to pay for your electrical bill. It just felt shitty to me. It was fine okay, I didn't like my jobs, but it felt fine to take that money from the jobs I didn't like and use it to pay electrical bills. Somehow that felt okay. So, I mean, and if you talk about managing expectations, if you're going to ask me over, okay, do I regret? I don't have any regrets at how things have turned out at all. I'm just holding a firmer line now than I ever have before. But the reality of it is I have zero fucking regrets. I got a bunch of records that I'm really excited about, a bunch of great experiences. And I mean, indeed, my entire life has been constructed around my last house that I had in California that I sold to buy this house was, I call it the house that punk rock built. The guys from the band PLH helped me build all the decking, and the woman who gave me all the lumber, all this great Alaskan cedar that I used to build this pergola. She had booked Whipping Boy to play her birthday party, which she had planned to kill herself before then, but it gave her a new lease on life, so she wanted to pay it forward. I mean, most of the people I know have met their husbands and their wives via this. That's why I jokingly call it a dating service for weird people. You just meet other weird people in other places. So I have zero fucking regrets about it. But the question is, if one of my kids said, "Hey, Dad, I'm gonna quit my job, go on tour," and I wouldn't be sad about that, but I would say don't quit the job. No, because I did
yeah.
just what you did. I quit when I was at the Electric Power Research Institute. I was like, these guys are busting my balls, so I'm fucking, I'm out. And I opened a record tape, T-shirt, video, tattoo parlor, rehearsal studio, and shared it with Bart Thurber, who was running the recording studio called House of Faith Recording, where we recorded Fuckfest and King of the Jews. And and that lasted about 3 years. And I don't even regret that. I don't even regret that. I had a great saleswoman the first year, and I didn't realize that having a great saleswoman is how you become successful. And
Uh,
then she quit because we had kind of a scary location, and some crackheads started coming in. So she goes, "I can't be here late at night now, so sorry, Eugene." And the guy I got, some bass player I got, he's systematically destroyed my business, and I just didn't realize it till it was over. But I don't even have regrets about that. It's been a good ride. I feel pretty happy with what I've done and produced, and I like it. But I definitely, it's buyer beware. You just can't, manage your expectations and buyer beware, and don't take any shit.
yeah.
Luxury lovers.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, it's been so awesome talking to you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for your time. I
Uh,
really appreciate it. I really
Hey,
appreciate it.
thank you, Melissa. Thank you for having me. This was very cool. I mean, I think I've been largely waiting to say this shit for. I was maybe way too political to have said it 10, 15 years ago when I realized it to be true, but it's nice to be able to say it now.
All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. And please subscribe on wherever you listen to your podcasts, or we're also on YouTube. And can't wait for the next one. Bye.